Okay, we're on podcast number 2 for chapter 13, and we're going to talk about how blood is circulated throughout the body. So there's two main circuits when we talk about how blood is circulated throughout the body. You need to get blood to and from your lungs, and then you need to get the blood to and from all the different parts of your body. So when blood is being pumped between your heart and your lungs, that is called pulmonary circulation. It is very often seen in pictures blue in color, and that does not mean that your blood is actually blue. It's just a way of showing that the blood is oxygen poor. So when you see blue, that usually means we're talking about oxygen poor blood. So the pulmonary circuit is going to go from the right side of the heart to the lungs and then back down into the left side. And then your systemic circulation is going out into your entire system, and that's going to go from your left side of your heart through the aorta and out to all the capillaries in your body everywhere. So remember, pulmonary means lung. So the pulmonary circuit is your lung circuit, and systemic means body, so your entire system. So the systemic circulation is going to bring the blood all throughout your entire body. This is a very regulated circuit. The blood is only going to go where it's supposed to go, and it always goes back around in kind of like a figure 8. You can kind of see it's a double pump system. So we're going to take a look at how it moves from all these different parts of your heart. Now, because it's a closed circuit, you can actually start tracing the blood anywhere and get back to that point. But an overview of how this works. We're going to start at the right atrium. Okay, so we're going to say that deoxygenated blood is going to enter the right atrium through the vena cava. Now remember, the vena cava is bringing blood back to the heart from the body. So the vena cava is bringing blood in from the body. So that blood is low in oxygen right now, and it is high in carbon dioxide. And that's the opposite of what we need our blood to be. So the blood comes in to the right side of the heart through the vena cava. The blood is going to move down into the right ventricle, and it does that by moving through the tricuspid valve. Okay, so that valve is there between the right atrium and the right ventricle. Move through that tricuspid valve until the blood fills up the right ventricle. Then the blood is going to go out the pulmonary arteries and head over to the lungs. Remember, pulmonary means lungs. And to go through that, it's got to go through the pulmonary valve. Okay, so the blood goes through the pulmonary valve, out into the pulmonary arteries, and heads over to the lungs. Now, once it's at the lungs, it's going to pick up oxygen. So it's going to grab oxygen, and it's going to get rid of carbon dioxide. Okay. Once that happens, the blood is going to return to the heart through the pulmonary veins. So veins always bring blood to the heart, and it's going to come into the left atrium. So the blood comes back down into your heart, into the left side of your heart. The blood then moves from the left atrium into the left ventricle, and it does that through the mitral valve. And remember, the mitral valve is also called the bicuspid valve. Okay. Once the blood fills up in the left ventricle, now remember this blood that we now have is high in oxygen and low in carbon dioxide, whereas before it was the opposite. Now that high oxygen blood needs to get out to all the different parts of your body. So the oxygenated blood is going to move out of the left ventricle when it contracts through the aorta and out to the rest of the body. And it does that through the aortic valve. Now, in order for your blood to actually get to all of the different parts of your body, it's going to go through a series of blood vessels, and the smallest of the blood vessels are the capillaries. And the capillaries are going to actually deliver that blood, or the stuff that's in the blood, directly to your cells. And so we'll talk more about the blood vessels when we get to podcast number 3. Once all of everything's been picked up, you dropped off everything at your cells, you picked up all the waste products and everything, and then you're back up here at step 1, and it just continues over and over again. So here is a way of looking at it. So if we were to look at what we just talked about, we started with step 1 was right here. Okay, so the blood came down the vena cava into the right atrium, and then it flows into the right ventricle. Then it's going to go out to the pulmonary artery over to the left lung, and then it's going to come back, here's step 4, into the, here this is also step 4, into the left atrium, and then we come down here into the left ventricle, and then we get pumped out to the entire body through the aorta. So it's that same kind of circuit as we go around. So you come in, go down the right side of the heart, over to the lungs, come back to the left side of the heart, and then out to the body. And it keeps going and going and going. All right, now you are constantly having blood going into your heart, but the blood that actually goes into your heart is not going to nourish your myocardium. And your myocardium is, remember, a very thick muscle. It needs a constant supply of oxygen and nutrients in order to survive. But the blood that's inside of the heart, because of the endothelium that's in there, the endocardium, it's not going to get any nourishment from it. So the heart actually has its own circulatory system, and it's called coronary circulation. So coronary means heart. So there are coronary arteries and cardiac veins. The coronary arteries actually come right from the aorta. So one of the first places that your blood that's getting pumped out of your heart goes to is directly back to the heart, but it delivers it to the outside of the heart. So it's going to deliver all the oxygenated blood that just come out of the heart to the actual muscle of your heart from the outside. The cardiac veins are going to take the deoxygenated blood after your heart just used it, all that energy to pump, and it's going to take it and actually empty it directly into the right atrium. So the cardiac veins will empty directly right into the heart. So it actually bypasses the vena cava. So it has its own little system right around the heart, because remember, the blood that is inside of the heart that's being pumped to your whole body does not feed the heart itself. So it has its own system on the outside. Okay. The cardiac cycle, when your heart beats, the atria, both of them contract at the same time, and that pushes the blood down from the atria into the ventricles. Then the atria will relax, and the ventricles are both going to contract at the same time and push their blood out into their major arteries. So when the ventricles are contracting, this is called systole, and when they are relaxing, that is called diastole. And those are actually measurements you can take when you look at blood pressure and whatnot. So the atria squeeze their blood down into the ventricles. It doesn't take a lot of force because it's right there. And then your ventricles are going to contract at the same time and squeeze that blood out to the rest of the body. Now you also have sounds that are associated with the cardiac cycle. Your heart sounds are often referred to as a lub-dub sound. And that actually comes from the closing of your heart valve. So as your valves open and close, they actually can make sounds. So the first sound that you hear is when your AV valves are closing, and that's the beginning of the ventricular dystole. So remember, when your or diastole. So when your ventricles are contracting, the AV valves, the valves that are between your atria and ventricles, are going to close, so that you don't get blood going back up into the atria. When they close, they actually can hear that. That's the first part of your heart sound. The second sound comes from once the ventricles have finished their contraction and they relax, the semilunar valves going out to the arteries will close, and that is the second heart sound that you hear, is when those ones close. And you get that lub-dub sound over and over again. And again, typically you'll hear that about 60 to 80 times per minute, depending on how in shape you are. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. So here are your right and left atria, and they will fill first, and then they contract and they will completely fill up your ventricles. Once your ventricles are full, the AV valves right here close, and that's your first sound that you hear. And then now that they're full, we're going to contract your ventricles and we're going to push the blood out into the major arteries. That's the ventricular ejection phase. And then once they have emptied themselves, now these valves, the semilunar valves, are going to close, and that is your second sound that you hear of your heartbeat. Okay, so notice both sides go through this at the same time. So you're pumping blood to your lungs and to your entire body at the same time. And it makes it actually more efficient, so your heart's not always kind of off kilter. Because all of this is controlled, your entire heartbeat is controlled by a pacemaker, a nervous system piece. So that's your heart conduction system. It's an intrinsic conduction system. This means that there is a set of nerves directly in the heart that are controlling it. If you need to change your heartbeat, then you have hormones and your parts of your brain will change your heartbeat, but for its regular beating, we have something called a pacemaker. It's also known as the sinoatrial node, and basically it's a bundle of nerves that are right at the top of your heart on the right side, and they make sure that your heart contracts regularly every minute, 60 to 80 times. So the way that this works, the SA node, the sinoatrial node, is going to start the cardiac cycle. So the stimulus, so it basically, like I said, more than once per second, is going to send out an electrical impulse, just like your nervous system does. Okay, and that stimulus is going to spread across both of the atria, and that's going to make them contract. Then you have the atrioventricular node. This is the spot between the atria and ventricles, and that's going to open up your valves. Okay. The atria contract, pushing the blood down into the ventricles, and then the impulse is going to go and continue on down the septum, and that is going to tell the ventricles to contract, and that's going to squeeze the blood back out. And again, that just keeps happening over and over again, and the heart controls its own beating. But if you need to get your heart rate up, you're exercising, you're scared or something, your brain can take over for your pacemaker and make your heart beat faster or slower, whatever it needs to do. But the regular everyday that you don't have to think about is controlled by the pacemaker inside of your heart. Okay? So here is the SA node right up here. So it's this little tiny bundle of nerves that extend out. So the first thing that's controlling everything, and then it tells the AV node, okay, we're going to do a contraction now. The atria contract, fill up the ventricles. The impulse continues down into these nerves going around the septum, and that will tell the septum, now it's your turn, or tell the ventricles, now it's your turn to contract, and that's going to push the blood back out. And again, every time that these valves open and close, going in and out of the heart, that's when you're going to hear your heartbeat.